It's time for Money for Lunch, where we feed your brain and your business with supersized portions of business and financial news. Now your host, Bert Martinez.
All right, we are back. My next guest, Astrid Bumgardner, is a lawyer and career coach who inspires her clients and students to tap into their best part of themselves to create authentic success. Ms. Bumgardner is on the faculty of Yale University School of Music, where she teaches musicians how to create successful careers in the arts and coaches and runs training programs at YSM students on how to be successful. I'm sorry, my teleprompter is playing a little trick on me. Ms. Bumgardner also has her own coaching business working with musicians, art leaders, and creative business professionals. A frequent guest lecturer at music conservatories, universities, and arts leadership programs. Ms. Bumgardner writes a popular blog on career entrepreneurship for musicians and arts leaders. Astrid Bumgardner, welcome to Money for Lunch.
Thank you so much, Bert. It's great to be here.
Well, you know what, and I'm glad to have you here because I think a lot of people who are in the arts think that being an artist sometimes means being broke, that if you're an artist, a musician, a writer, a painter, a sculptor, that you're not supposed to be an entrepreneur.
Right. Well, that's a really common misconception, although I think a lot of young musicians, young artists are getting it, that in order to create success in their careers, they have to be entrepreneurial, because the New York Philharmonic is not going to call you up and say, how would you like to be our first violinist? It's not like getting recruited to a law firm or to an investment bank. You have to go out and proactively make those opportunities happen. So that's what I teach at Yale at my course called Creating Sustainable Careers in the Arts. And part of that actually is how to manage your finances so that you are able to support your dream of being an artist. And there's a lot you can do to plan, to save, to strategize, to create the kind of goals that you're going to be motivated to go after to create success as an artist and musician. This will be my fifth year teaching at Yale, and I've seen my students go off and create careers that they feel really great about. Now, are they living on Fifth Avenue in New York City? No, but they don't care about that. They care about having a sustainable life and about having that deep inner satisfaction from sharing their art and their music with people who really love it.
Yes, and I think that's really the most important thing. Whether you're an entrepreneur, I'll say a straight entrepreneur, for lack of better terms, a business entrepreneur versus a artistic entrepreneur, to be able to do what you love to do and get paid for it, whether you live on Fifth Avenue or on Park Avenue or whatever, doesn't matter. I mean, I think that is one of the keys of happiness, is to be able to do what you love to do and make a living at it. Let me tell you, you're way ahead of the game.
Well, no, it's really interesting because there's a whole field of research called positive psychology, which is dedicated to studying how to become happier. And the premise of positive psychology is we have the right to be happy, and there are things we can do to make ourselves happier. And when we're talking about happiness, I think it's important to define the term. We're talking about experiencing pleasure in the moment as well as having optimism about the future. And so there's a whole body of research within positive psychology of people who study exactly how we go about becoming happier. And what they found is it's not money, it's not fame, it's not success, traditional success, however. It's not having beautiful homes and vacations. It's really that place of inner satisfaction and achieving goals that feel really meaningful to you.
Yes. All right, so I got to ask you, because here you are, you're an attorney, but you work with artists and musicians, and so I want to get your thought on, is it really possible to become happier?
Well, the answer is, I'm going to just say it, yes, absolutely. Now, it takes a lot of work. It's like developing a habit or creating a new muscle. But there are definitely strategies that can help you to build long-term happiness. And I'm particularly inspired by the work of a woman named Dr. Sonia Lubomirsky. The easy thing to remember is her book, The How of Happiness, which summarizes the how of happiness. And she
I like that.
It's great because what she does is she summarizes the research in plain English so that normal humans can understand her, and then goes through, she gives assessments on what makes you happy, and then gives you lots and lots of different strategies that best match up with your personality and your interests that you can begin to work on to cultivate that long-term happiness. And
Yes.
there's also a center at Berkeley. It's called Greater Good at Berkeley.edu, and it's a website full of research and practical tools on how to become a happier person. So I find all this very inspirational, and I teach it, and my students and my clients love it because it's very practical.
All right, so let's talk about this. What can people do to become happier?
Right, great question. So it sort of fits within a few buckets. First of all, really important to know how to develop a positive mindset and cultivate optimism. It also has to do with your relationships, not the quantity but the quality, to develop a strong social network. It actually goes back to committing to working on inspiring goals. It's being a kind, altruistic, grateful human being. It's being someone who's physically, mentally, and emotionally happy, and someone who commits to doing this and working on these strategies on a daily and weekly basis. So I'll give you a couple of examples. How do you cultivate optimism, right? We all hit walls, right? There's a day where nothing's going right, where, for my musicians, right, they're getting rejected from auditions, they've got a performance and they're scared out of their minds, whatever it is. So what do? One way to cultivate optimism is to look at the positive sides of things and put things in context. So to say, okay, so I'm having a tough day. What's working in my life? That is a brilliant question, because if you start asking yourself that question, you realize I'm healthy, I've got friends, I'm at Yale, I'm have these amazing professors. Or for someone like me, I live in New York City, which I think is the greatest place in the world. What's working? All of that changes the channel in your mind. Another really great question to cultivate optimism: is this going to matter in a year? Which that puts so much into context. And if the answer is yes, it will matter in a year, okay, well now you have an inspiring, motivating goal that you want to work on. Another thing that helps to cultivate optimism: is this within my control? If it is, what can I do about it? If it's not, let it go. Because so much of the stuff depends on other people, on circumstances that you have no control over. So why make yourself crazy? So I think that's one, set of strategies, cultivating optimism. I think another thing to do is set those kind of goals that you're going to wake up every morning and say, you bet, I'm going to work towards this because I'm excited about it. And I do a lot of that as a career coach, to figure out what motivates people, what makes them happy. I look at their values, I look at their passions, I look at their strengths, and I help them put this all together so that they're creating goals that they're going to really work hard towards achieving. And then there's another wonderful psychological concept. It's called flow. And flow, we all know this, being in the flow, when you're doing something that you're just humming along and you're slightly challenged, but you can do it, so you keep doing it, and you get into that time loop where you just keep doing what you're doing because it makes you feel so joyful and confident. And that's actually a psychological state that's been studied, and it's a book called Flow: The Psychology of Optimal Performance. And if you do have flow experiences on a daily and weekly basis, that's another one of those things that cultivates long-term happiness.
That's amazing. Yeah, you know what, and I like what you said there, is just look at what you have. Start with what you have, and being grateful for living where you're living and having what you have, I think, is a very simple, effective tool to being happier instant. Because sometimes we overlook all the great stuff we already have.
No, it's so true. And in fact, it's interesting because positive psychology started off, I'm going to say 20 years ago, by trained psychologists and therapists who were dealing with people who were really miserable. And they said, well, wait, we have all this training. Why are we focusing on the stuff that's not working? Let's use our training to help people see what is working. And the first two things they pointed to were gratitude and strengths, to help people focus on what they were good at. So, I love gratitude because it really is. It's a simple thing, and it's actually, again, one of those happiness strategies. Every day, write down 3 things you're grateful for, because, again, it puts you in that mindset of what's working.
Yes. I would, Astrid, we're out of time, but I would love to bring you back and talk more about being happier and get to some of the items that we didn't get to. This, to me, is such a fascinating subject matter because we have so many people out there nowadays who are on antidepressants for no reason, simply because I think, I'm not a doctor, but this is just my opinion, I think a lot of people are so ungrateful or so unaware of all the great blessings they have that they make themselves miserable.
Yes, no, absolutely. And there's so much you can do. In my blog, I got really interested in this year, and I started teaching it and blogging about it. So, I've got a ton of stuff on my blog. I'll just leave people with one thing. Meditation. Right. Easy, simple thing that I learned this year and has just made such a world of difference. And, I just say to people, go out and buy Sonia Lyubomirsky's book, The How of Happiness, and just start doing some of those things and reflect back in the next, how you're doing, because it really does help.
The How of Happiness. Go get the book. Astrid Baumgartner, thank you so much for stopping by. We'll have you back again soon.
Lovely. Thanks so much, Bert. Have a great day.
All righty. Guys, We're off and running. Great ways to be happier now. And start off with just, being grateful. I mean, such a simple thing. I like this idea of meditation as well. And remember, you were created to succeed.
Tune in Monday through Friday here on Money for Lunch. And check out our website at moneyforlunch.com.